Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, let's see if this is connecting the slow, tedious connect to YouTube, and then the slow, tedious connect waiting for it to load, and then waiting to, hey, I muted. Oh my God, I actually did it all by myself. Unbelievable. Hold on. Hi, everyone. I am not in my usual setting. So in case you're confused by, whoa, Pam Lefkowitz is first. Tony, Pam beat you in the room. Pam. Okay, so Pam, should I be happy that you're here or insulted that you have not come to one of my lives for so long, but Franklin's in the house, so guess who shows up? Hello. All right, I'm gonna do a little chat here. Hi. Okay. Still no Tony. I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear there's gambling here. Hold on. I gotta fix a couple things. Yeah, Pam, I know you've been working hard. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, welcome everybody. I'm gonna close a couple windows that are annoying me. Hold on. Close that. Close that. I was not ready. Here's why I wasn't ready, because I was doing too much pre-chatting with Franklin because I haven't seen him in a long time. Oh, see, I'm not doing the usual. Never mind. I'm so professional. Hello, everyone. Hello from Montreal. Hello from Michigan. Hi, Chris. Hello. Oh, Zanti's in the house. Zanti also never comes to my lives. Zanti has shown up. Fabulous. Hello from LA. So yeah, it's an exciting day. I'm in Brooklyn, which is not my usual place for the lives. I'm normally up in the house, but I am gonna head out on a little vacation this weekend. I'm very excited. So I had to get stuff together in Brooklyn, and also I was doing the Knit Stars stuff. There's one of the knit downs for Knit Stars, and just doing a lot of work. So anyway, hello. Look at all you. Okay, there's a lot of folks. There's Michelle is here. There's a lot of folks that don't normally show up to my lives. So I'm thinking there might be some additional draw today. I don't know. What could it be? What could it be? What could it be? I don't know. See, and also my lights are not my usual lights, so I'm going to have to take off these readers. All right. So before we get to the reason that you probably actually are all here, not to see me, but that's okay. That's totally okay. I want to share with you a couple of exciting things. First of all, it's book launch day. What? I mean, not book launch, but it's book pre-order launch day, which I'm very excited about. So I have not even really kind of officially announced it yet. I mean, I did like one post on Instagram, but I didn't make a big humongo deal about it. But look at this craziness. Number 30. Number 30 in the book category. What? What? Yeah, so that's just amazeballs. So I wanted to show you, I'm actually going to switch to a different, hold on, I should have preset this up and I didn't because I need to set it up with my little head. So hold on, it's going to go to blank for a second. It's very, very professional. But I want to show you all before we bring on the real star of the show. I want to show you the book launch page, which was not pre-set up, which really should have been pre-set up. Okay, here you go. So we have a book launch page set up. There it is in the menu, book, under right there in the top menu, or you can go directly to pattylyons.com/book. Pretty easy to remember. And we have our book launch page set up. So what this is 4 is to get stuff. Because I know you guys, you want stuff. Who doesn't want stuff? So as a little, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, as a little treat, for the folks that pre-order, and we have all these handy places that you can pre-order, including Book Depository, which does free shipping all over the world, and IndieBound, which is a lot of independent bookstores and all that good stuff. We have some sneak peeks, but here's how this works. You do your pre-order, you put in your info, you upload your receipt, and don't worry in case you're like, what? I already pre-ordered. That's okay. You still have your receipt, I'm sure. You upload your receipt, and you are going to get a bunch of fun things mailed to you. You're going to get an autographed book plate. You're going to get some swag, some book merch. You're going to get a raffle ticket for some prizes. I'm going to do a special video lesson just for you all. And then we're going to have a launch party. So what I would love to see, because I think it would be super cool, is by the end of the day, or maybe by tomorrow, if that number 30 was even higher. Wouldn't that be crazy? I just think that would be amazing to have a book already, like, I don't know. Is that greedy to want to have a book in like the top 15 and it hasn't even been out yet? Yeah, it is a little greedy, but I'm a little greedy. So there you go. So hold on, let me go back to my YouTubes, my comments here, see how you guys are doing. Yay, pre-ordering. Oh, Chris says you're the real star of the show. I think we all can acknowledge that that is not true, but that's okay. Marcy, where do we get it? Wherever you like. So the other fun thing is the book is available at a lot of independent bookstores already for pre-order. Because like my sister-in-law said, oh, but I always order from Wellesley Books, so I'm going to have to wait until it comes out in September. And then we went to Wellesley Books, typed in the name of the book, and like, there it was. So there you go. Okay, but it's getting late. It is getting almost to dinner time in a certain city in France. So I want to bring on a very special guest, and some of you may know, but some of you may not know, that in the little book, in addition to like 200 plus technical drawings, there's about a dozen delightful little bits of glory from a little certain someone named Franklin Habit. And the crowd goes wild.
Hello, hi Patty.
It's okay,
Hello,
now I'm going to
Patty's
turn on
friends.
my silly Franklin Habit thing.
I like that. It's very
Hi.
classy. I feel like I'm on Oprah.
You are only my third. Wait. Oh, well, there's been a lot of Canadian guests, but I'll do that weird American thing where I'm like, you're only my third international guest. I mean, because Canada doesn't count because it's attached.
It's not even a real country, so
it's not. Oh! Now Fiona Ellis is going to come and kick.
I know, and she really would kick my ass, So
she really would. Did you just scratch her head with a back scratcher? What do we have here?
No. It's just a really large needle.
Oh,
yeah. I've been knitting. I know it looks like a Cher clown wig or something back there, but it's raffia. Because
it totally did, by the way.
I'm doing I am actually doing a display piece to go into the window of my neighborhood yarn shop. And so I have been knitting with the raffia, which they're actually, well, as I'm sure you know, there are yarn companies that produce raffia packaged for knitting. But this is not that. This is just like craft weaving raffia that I'm just tying together as I go, because it was what was available in the colors that I needed, because I needed colored raffias and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I have been knitting raffia with these big needles. And
nice. Now I saw the you did a window not that long after you moved, like a month or so after you moved, that was adorable. So is this your second window or your third window now?
This will be, well, I did one for them before I even moved here. And I think this will be window number 3. And it's been a long time coming, but they've been super patient, considering that, I mean, I'm coming up on 9 months, and it's within the past month that I have started to actually feel like, okay, I really just live here now. And like the days have a routine to them, and I can do things like go buy food completely nonchalantly without worrying that something catastrophic language wise is going to happen to me. So work's picking up. It's a lot of fun. So
It would be really fabulous once you get maybe if you're going to keep doing once you get like a dozen windows to do a coffee table book,
like a retrospective of,
I'm just saying.
It's really, and we actually, the window after this one is going to be the Christmas window. Because I had grand designs of doing a new window for them every month, and it's just like it's just still not possible right now. But we're already starting work on the Christmas window, because Christmas windows are a big deal.
You gotta bring it.
Yeah,
you gotta bring it for Christmas.
It's got so many parts.
I actually think back in the day, I mean, you remember I used to run 2 different yarn stores. I ran one in the West Village.
I remember.
I ran one in the West Village as well before. And when I first took over the Point in the West Village, we would do something every month. But then not everybody would come to the shop once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So we found that changing it quarterly, but making it like really a fabulous install.
Yeah.
We got more bang for our buck that way. So
yeah,
I don't know,
that's a really good point too, because it's, and this place, I love it. It's called Les Tricoteurs Volants, which means the flying knitters. And it's truly, it's about a 5-minute walk from my door. Which,
I was just going to ask you if it was walking distance.
Yeah, it's real. It's like super, super close. And it's a small shop, but the yarns are actually interesting. Like I get the question a lot now, like, okay, I'm coming to Paris, and like, where do I go yarn shopping? And what's nice is there are a lot of places, but it's a yarn store that I like, because if you're coming from the US, if you're coming from North America generally, it's a place where there's going to be a lot of stuff you haven't seen before, and that you can't get cheaper at home. Like there's a very, very nice, really cute shop in Montmartre that a lot of people's like, oh, and I heard there's a shop in Montmartre. And I'm like, yes. And they mostly carry, and I won't name the brands here, but I rattle them off. And the response is always like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, it's all the stuff that you have like back in whichever state you're coming from. Like,
right.
And
I mean,
for them here, that's a big deal. That's that shop owner's claim to fame in the Paris knitting scene, is if you want American yarns, you go to her.
Right.
But I don't know a lot of Americans that come here excited to pay more money to buy American yarns and then drag them back home. So
right, like the very first time I went to Ireland, which was a long, long time ago. First of all, I was really shocked. I thought like, oh, there's going to be, a yarn store every 5 feet, and there really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did find a yarn store, it was Debbie Bliss, Nora, Rowan. It was just like a transplanted. So I remember the first time I went to a yarn store in Portland, Oregon, and like many, many years ago. And when I travel, I would go in and say, oh, do you have any local yarn? Because even as a traveler in America, I'd like to see something, I've never seen. So I think it was called Twisted. And I said, oh, do you have any local yarn? And she said, locally grown and dyed, locally grown, dyed and spun, locally spun.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, sorry. She's like, okay, so this wall is
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right, so I have to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot for a couple book questions.
All right.
For those of you out there in TV land, and I'll get to some questions in a second. Some of you may know that the cherry on top of my little technique cake was about a dozen fabulous Franklin Habit drawings. Now, some of you also may or may not know what I didn't know about writing a book, could fill a book, except I wouldn't know how to write it. So was I the worst client you've ever had?
Oh my God.
Because
Oh,
I,
now see, you got to stop
I didn't
thinking.
really know.
No. I actually, no, that's not putting me on the spot. That's a really good question. So I will just start with the short answer, which is no.
Okay.
Um,
So I
and
was very
you would
nervous.
know if you were on the list of like worst clients, because I would have fired you. And like I didn't, right? Like we finished the project. Because that actually, I've gotten more protective of myself. And not too long after I started your project, I started a project that was sort of in some ways similar. It was also illustrations for someone else, and that project is not going ahead because
Oh,
they were so hard to work with. You, on the other hand, and I will tell this to all of your people that are watching you, was an awesome assignment. And I think if you think back to like, it might have been the second email where you sent me a list of illustrations that you were looking for, and then sort of ideas about why you wanted them.
mhm.
And I literally just went, oh, yes. Because for me, in any case, it is much better to work with a client who knows her own mind and has a good, strong idea of what she wants, as
Okay.
opposed to someone who is going to, well, this is how they usually get you. See, is they're like, oh, you just do whatever you want. I just want pretty decorations. Just make it pretty.
Well,
Just
I did
make it
have,
pretty.
remember, a few that would say like Franklin inspired, like the beginning and the end of the book. I didn't know what that bookend would be. I wrote
But
Franklin
then,
inspired.
but then I read what you wrote. I mean, you
Yeah.
wrote the text for the book, because I've seen the whole book. So I've seen it all. It's really good too. It's really good. Uh, those
Well, I mean, I gotta
illustrations
get a quote
were
from you.
those illustrations were grounded on uh, your writing. It wasn't really difficult. Your writing is your writing has a lot of visual metaphors in it, a lot of description in it. When you have that, that's you have a starting point.
Right.
So no,
Oh,
you
interesting.
were not the most difficult client, and really the project was very enjoyable because in many cases, you're kind of the really nice combination of, you knew what you wanted, you also trusted me to just be an illustrator. So I wasn't getting messages from you going like, I don't know, this line, the way her arm is drawn, like
Oh,
those are, as an illustrator, those are the clients where you just want to like fake your own death.
right.
Um, because it's
There
like,
was one email I sent you that I was so nervous about. And I said, so because, okay, so there was one email where I was looking for, because well, I'm not going to tell you guys, but I made a mistake. I made a conceptual mistake, which made a drawing difficult because I screwed something up in my brain, but I'm
oh,
not going to tell anyone.
okay, no, and I won't say which
But
one it was either. They can take a
but
guess.
you know that the one I screwed up in my brain. So I was looking, okay, I'll just say it. The fact that I thought, I thought the heights of Laurel and Hardy, that I thought one was tall and thin, and I screwed up the heights. But anyway, so you fixed it.
Did you get a
But
little stomach ache when the realization hit that it's like, oh, this whole time I thought it was like this, but they were like this instead? I
yeah,
know you. I bet you did, didn't you? But see,
yeah,
it's okay. It's okay because
yeah,
then we knew what our challenge was
yeah.
and we figured it out. We
So
figured it
I
out.
was looking for a reference photo of them maybe sitting or like dealing with the hats, because his cartoonish, that the costumes that they wore had the over exaggerated hat, where his was small and
Mhm.
tall, the others.
Yeah.
And so the one image I found was a drawing. It was someone else's illustration, not a photo. So I put it in the email and I was like, I'm not sending you an illustration because I want this as an illustration.
No, but
It's
see,
just I couldn't find a photo, but I was so
yeah.
nervous because I thought
Any
that was really
illustrator
rude.
that you're working with. Oh, and by the way, do you like my Paris air conditioner, by the way?
Oh,
This
it's
is
very, oh,
so, because this is all you get here, baby. This is it. That's my air
well,
conditioner behind me is that window.
Santi's
So
here. if something is
Anyways.
still here, we're going to Maine, which normally would not need air conditioning in May.
Oh,
It's going to be in the 90s in
yeah,
Maine.
you're not supposed to need that here either. That's, the big story. And it's, yeah, thank you, global warming.
Yeah,
But no,
you're
I found you to be a really, really, really good person to work with on these things because you knew what you wanted, you had concepts, you had standards, you were not afraid to ask for clarifications or revisions. And what that allowed me to do was it allowed me to get you, I think, stuff that you're happy with. And honestly, frankly, the final version of Laurel and Hardy, quite aside from any conceptual stuff that we were changing, and frankly, it was just a stronger drawing. The final version was a stronger drawing. So,
I love it.
Getting to rework stuff is pretty cool, and also it was really nice to, it's very flattering for you to call me the cherry on top of your sundae because it's awfully nice sundae. But it was nice to get to just do the fun drawings too. Because honestly, like people who do technical drawings, I admire them to the moon and back because I would die. I would end up clawing my face off.
Linda was amazing,
and they're beautiful. They are so clear and.
She was amazing.
I just got to do the fun stuff. Like I got to do the goofy, funny stuff. And you trusted me. You trusted me to be funny, which was nice.
I'm allowed to show a couple of pages because they gave me some.
Oh, okay, goody. I was hoping that you could.
And I think I think there's only one preview page that has one of your drawings on it, but so that these are the Wednesday. This is what inspired everything was the Wednesday words of wisdom that I did on Instagram. And that's, so those are the facing pages, but let me get to one of yours. Oh, there's Linda's technical illustrations, which I just think she's
so clear,
amazing job on. But they did give me, oh no, I don't have, did I get, oh no,
well,
you know what?
Kind of me on the back.
Look who gets on the back.
The acrobat. And you put my name on the cover too, girl, which is,
dude, your name's on the front and the back cover. You're on the front and the back cover.
That's a rare honor.
And your name is on the bookmark that we're getting, because the bookmark is going to have the back cover illustration with the acrobats.
Well, that really I said that could be a useful drawing. Wow. That's great. Okay.
It's a perfect bookmark drawing. So Anna said, so I felt it was important to put Franklin's name on it. I hope that's okay, because
I really
we put one of the illustrations of the bookmark. I'm like, if you didn't put his name on it and you put one of his illustrations on the bookmark, I simply would have said, oh, you're missing Franklin's name because you used one of his illustrations. So I'm like, Anna,
it's good to get credit, especially as the illustrator, because usually the only person more overlooked than the illustrator is the author. So thank you.
Well, both Linda and you are also in the acknowledgements in the book. Linda I got Linda recommended to me from Trisha Malcolm, and Linda is a knitter. So every illustration, you know how you look at technical illustrations and you're like, there's no running thread between the stitches. That's annoying.
You can tell, right? Yeah.
So I tried to think through. It's so hard to have a fluid motion and think, okay, how many still illustrations will get this point across? Because sometimes I would look at magazines that would have like one drawing with 8 million arrows. And I'm like, I know how to do that technique. I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, as far as those little arrows could all have been placed by Escher, as far as you can tell, because they bear no resemblance to the universe as we know it. Yeah.
So I would do still photos of my hands, and I'd send those to her. And then I would film a couple of videos too. And this is about like me not knowing what is the right way to do things. And Linda was like, oh, and then she had a spreadsheet, and Linda said, oh my God, no one's ever given me all this information in my life. So then she cast on and tried every single technique.
Wow. Okay.
Every single one to make sure she understood it for the illustrations. And sometimes she would email me and say, I hope you don't mind, but I drew you one more drawing. I think we're missing a step. And I was like, oh, I don't mind. Are you
Yeah, do I
kidding?
mind? No, no, please. But that's the joy of communication,
How
like
cool is
it's
that?
like you gave me more than enough to do my job. You gave her more than enough to do her job. It leads to a stronger book.
And
I mean, that's the
I
long and the
love the
short of it.
parents.
It just leads to a better finished book in the end. So I'm proud of the drawings that I did for you. It's the most fun I've had doing a set of drawings in a long time.
Oh my
Um,
God, I'm
and
excited.
it was really fun because I was finishing them up just as it really started to be comfortable enough here to go work in cafes. So a few of those were drawn like in the most Parisian fashion possible at my favorite neighborhood cafe here, like sitting at my table with my pad, and I'm drawing and I'm having a Perrier, and I'm just being so. And my neighborhood is a hoot because um, it's still considered like sometimes when I tell other Parisians where I live, they say, "Oh my goodness, it is quite a quartier, is it not?" And it's because for a long time it was considered to be a pretty rough part of central Paris. Um,
Oh,
but the mix here is also that traditionally this is a neighborhood um, fundamental, like founded upon the industry here has
oh
been
yeah.
has been the physical creation of samples for the fashion trade.
Yeah, I
So
saw when
like,
you first started posting that, I was like,
oh
oh my
yeah,
God, he moved to the garment district of Paris.
three floors down from me, the ground floor of my building still houses sample making workshops, and there are more of them like across the courtyard. So like 10 feet that way from me, across the little narrow inner courtyard, is a building that used to house a newspaper. It was a very famous newspaper called Le Petit
Oh,
Parisien, which is now and for a long time has been a fashion making space. Oh, for the room I'm sitting in is still listed on the official floor plan for this apartment as a buanderie, which now is a word that in current French, a lot of times, like where we would say laundry room in describing
oh,
a room in a private house, that's what
uh-huh.
we would say. But it indicates that this space for a long period of time was housed some kind of space to do with uh, repairs and laundering, kind of a really specialized, like you were cleaning and fixing at the same time. And that's what was in here. In fact, my landlady, when she bought the apartment, when she bought it, it was an office space and there were 13 people working in here. And she ripped up linoleum and took down drop ceilings and found 19th century details. And the floor in this room, which is herringbone hardwood, and super wobbly and very, very, very uneven, but very lovely.
Like Brooklyn.
Still had the marks in it from the sewing machines being attached to the floor. So it's an amazing place to have landed, because it wasn't like I didn't sort of shop around to find a neighborhood that would be just right for me, because getting an apartment here is like getting an apartment in New York City. It's like, unless you have $1 billion, you're going to, the apartment you choose will be
You're gonna
like
take what you
the
get.
one you can get, right?
Right.
So it was a lot of good luck and basically personal connection that I was able to land here, and that it turned out to be that that's what this neighborhood is. And it's a lot like the garment district, except it's even more hidden, because the fabric of the neighborhood isn't even 19th century. It's like 18th century. This building is 1780 something. And so you literally are walking down these streets, and at first you'd think like there's a street very near me called Rue de Cléry, and Rue de Cléry is not a street that tourists go to. if they wind up there, it's because they made a wrong turn and whatever. It is incredibly narrow. It looks really boring, and you almost think like, it's like, is Paris in a depression? Like, but it's because almost all the ground floors are still sample making workshops. So they have no need of a storefront.
Right.
And in fact, they don't have one. They're blocked off. The doors are kept closed.
Right.
Windows are frosted because you don't want the public looking
Right.
into your workshop.
Before it's
Yeah. Like at one point I was going to take this cute picture, like when I first moved in here. It was fall, but it was still like really, really super warm. And there was a meeting going on, and I was literally, it was like second day that I'm here, and I'm like, oh my God. And it was like dress forms and fabric swatches and like drawings taped to the walls. And I was like, oh crap, no, that's espionage. No, like I can't like do that. That someone could get fired because they had their window open.
like, do you remember TNNA back in like in the 90s when, you know, and this was before we all had cell phones, right? Before we all had cameras on our cell phone. And cameras were forbidden on the sales floor.
They would,
so you would like be you'd be searched. And like I remember Cherry Tree, blanked on the name. It was a indie dyer from like, you know, in the 90s, Cherry Tree. Anyway, and I did have a camera with me. And I said like, oh, do you mind if I take a picture just for me? This is when I was a buyer for the point, just so I can remember these colorways. And she's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I said, oh, she's like, this is how my colorways get stolen. I mean, it was just like, everything was like top secret. And now we're freaking live streaming everything.
I mean, it was really radical the first year that I did photos at TNNA. But it's because the paradigm has shifted, because it's like, yes, it's closed to the public, but this is also like the people that caught on were the ones that realized that, well, what I was doing was I was broadcasting to people and saying, oh, you see this, you like this, you talk to your yarn store, you tell them, get this.
Right.
And it worked. Like people got orders through that. But I remember it was, I mean, these ways of thinking go back a long way.
Oh, as Auntie said, it was Cherry Tree Hill.
Yeah. So it's hard to, you know, it's hard to break that mindset. And
when I think about when I was on Broadway, cell phones with cameras were still sort of new. Social media was still sort of new.
Oh yeah.
The thought of taking a photo in rehearsal or backstage or during tech and posting on your Facebook page was absolutely verboten. We would have the social media people come and talk to us about what we could and couldn't do. The stage managers would bring the, you know, actor in, and now their actors take their cell phones up onto the deck with them, to backstage, taking photos, texting, leave their cell phone on the prop table, go on stage, do their thing, pick up their cell phone. Like my brain would explode if I know
because I mean, that's one of the things I remember when we first worked together, when I was teaching in the shop that you were managing, and you ran it like a stage manager. It was very comfortable for me, but it was super impressive because everything was so organized. And I just remember thinking, yes, this is why actors could trust her, because she would always know that like everybody was, you know, if you ever decide that you want to do something just really radically different with your life, just come over here and be a guardian of a building, because you'd be very good at that too. Because that's what you have now. Unless you live in a really snooty building and like the 16th arrondissement, which is like the ultra rich, the ultra rich in Paris, it's like the ultra rich in New York. It's like beyond rich. It's like a different universe of wealth and stuff like that. Because I always thought, oh, everybody has a concierge in Paris. But instead, it's like, no, nowadays the proper term is a gardien or a gardien, depending on whether it's a boy or a girl. And they manage the building, but they also live in. Right. So my building has a gardien who is basically a dragon in human form. And she does not miss a thing. And this is not one of those buildings like people learn here, and usually it's Americans, like sort of think like, well, that's the posted rule, but who's going to notice if? And the answer is who's going to notice is the guardian is going to notice, because she has, I swear, she has like birds, like Maleficent, like birds who serve as her eyes and stuff like that. And we had a new resident who was ignoring the rules on garbage, like distribution, disposal, sorting, and stuff like that. And this is, tiny little crowded city. We have a population density higher than the population density of Manhattan. There is no room for anybody to be out of line
I didn't
and
know that.
do what they're supposed to do. Oh yeah, we are incredibly densely populated. And we had someone new, one of my new neighbors, and she was not doing things the right way. And I walked out of the front door of my building into the courtyard one day, and the guardian had like lain in wait for this woman to come out in the morning on her way to wherever she works or whatever, and was literally dressing her down like a Marine drill sergeant about what she was doing with her empty wine bottles and her glass stuff. And, and I just walking, I was not in trouble, but I still, like, I swear you
still stressed
to wetting my pants at even the idea that she might ever use that tone with me and might ever, because she was literally, and she doesn't hesitate. It's like, we have rules. This is my job, is to be here to make sure if you come into that courtyard with a bicycle and you don't live here and she doesn't know that bicycle, she will throw your bicycle out on the street, because like, outside bicycles not allowed in the courtyard.
I'm assuming you have seen the viral video now from a few days ago of the talkback from Company, Patti LuPone addressing a certain audience member. I haven't
seen that. Oh, I'm so out of the loop.
Oh God. You have to immediately just Google Patti LuPone audience member. So I will. I'm gonna not say the real word, because then I'll get the thing from YouTube where it's our video not family friendly. So I'm gonna. But Randy Rainbow did a thing on Instagram the day after this incident happened with this viral video of Patti LuPone addressing. Okay. I'll just say she was addressing a audience member who was not wearing his mask properly and had been approached by an usher 3 times and was still ignoring the rules. So she addressed it. And now, and I said, could Patti LuPone please make the recording for the New York City subway? Those recordings. So that's okay. So all Randy Rainbow would go out. Opened his book, because he's got a new book coming out, this already out. And he scrolls down the table of contents, and one of the chapters has a certain name. And he said, and this is why this chapter exists. The chapter is called Patti effing LuPone. That's the name of the chapter.
I would not want her ass mad at me. Let me tell you.
Oh my God. Wow. Can I tell you, she was the replacement in Masterclass. And so I saw Patti LuPone's Masterclass. Mm-hmm. So one of the things with Masterclass is she does did you ever see it on
I saw it it was Zoe Caldwell before her.
She originated the role. Right. And Patti LuPone replaced her. Mm-hmm. So one of the things they do is they do interact with the audience. So like if there's latecomers, they'll be like, oh no, by all means, come on in, we'll wait. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody else arrived on time, but no, you take your time.
That happened the night I went. Yes, that
So that's part of the show. So I have never in my life had to pee so much that I'm like was in pain, but we were sitting in the front row. I was not going to budge until intermission, but I'm crying. So like the lights hadn't even come up yet. I think the stage lights went down, and I was halfway up the aisle before the house was even beginning to,
Oh yeah. Because you don't want to make her angry. No.
I mean,
so you would be, I think you would be really good at this job. You would probably be, I think that you would be a lot more subtle than the present incumbent in this building, but all of your skills would transfer over very nicely. And I tell you, I mean, like she's scary, but a lover. and she is very much, I'm taking,
You should share the Patty LuPone video with her once you find it.
We'll be like buddies, yeah. Gardiens are kind of their own breed here. There's one for the school building, because I'm in a French for immigrants class right now, run through the Mairie of Paris. The Mairie is the collective of all of the arrondissement, basically town halls. So because Paris is divided up into individual official districts, and each district has its own town hall. And collectively, they do a lot of like social programs and things like that. And one of them are these famously really good English classes. Yeah. And my French class meets in an elementary school, like 4 minutes from my door. It's so convenient here. I can't even tell you. But at every school has its own gardien. And in our case, we have a gardien. And the dude is just frightening. But I've started to become like a little bit Parisian, because it's truly, class ends at 9:30 at night. And if you are not already outside the door at 9:31, he is angry. Like, why are you keeping me here?
I was going to say, he wants to go home.
It's like, well, I know, but I mean, we get let out of class at 9:30,
No, I feel that.
Yeah. See, but I have started to make sure now, because I know he wants to go home, but I'm walking as fast as I can. So Paris is a kind of a formal city, in that there are certain things that you never fail to do. And one of those is to greet people and to say goodbye to them. So every interaction with anyone starts with bonjour, always. You get onto the bus, you say bonjour to the bus driver. You walk up to the checkout person at the supermarket, you say bonjour, they say bonjour. Nothing happens until you say that. And you're supposed to say bonsoir.
Very different from New York.
Exactly. Yeah. So you say bonsoir to the guardian as you're leaving. I make such a point now of playing the grateful immigrant now, that he just, I say, oh, monsieur, bonsoir, monsieur, bonsoir, bientôt, à bientôt, monsieur, bonsoir, merci beaucoup, par ici, oui, merci, oh, merci, monsieur, bonsoir. Just, so I am becoming that. That's the way I think I have become the most Parisian, is like, two people can play this game, because there's always,
confuse and alarm me. I mean, we are the most comfortable when we are not addressed. Don't look at me. And that even in Chicago, I was born in Chicago, as you know, and when I was a kid, and my grandma and grandpa, they settled in Memphis during the war, and then they retired in the Ozarks, Forsyth, Missouri. Population 300.
Why not? Yes.
And the first time we visited them, and someone drove past, we were taking a walk, someone drove past and did the beep, beep and waved. And I said to him, Grandpa, oh, who's that? And he's like, I have no idea. So why'd they wave at you? He said, I literally have no idea. It's what they do here. I said, you just, like, every time you drive past a human, you have to beep, beep and wave? He's like, yes. And that to me was like so baffling, the idea of saying hello to someone for just no reason.
Yes.
Just like,
and here it's at least
another human.
Here it is only if an interaction is going to be necessary, but then it's absolutely necessary. Like, if you're an American and you're coming to Paris, and one of the things you just want to do is just like get along with people, Parisians are actually, and you've told me this about New Yorkers, and you're right, that they're just like New Yorkers. They have this like totally undeserved reputation for being not nice people.
We're very nice to tourists. We're just not nice to each other, but we are spectacularly kind to tourists. We really want people to have a good time. We don't want you to get on the wrong subway. We don't want you to go to Brooklyn if that's not where you want to go. We're just terrible to each other.
Yes, and Parisians, as long as you say bonjour first, Even if you want to ask for directions, you don't start with excusez-moi, which sounds really bizarre to Parisian ears. You don't start with excusez-moi because excusez-moi means you've done something wrong. Excusez-moi is like, I'm afraid my dog just peed on your foot.
What about saying pardon me? Is pardon me also?
Pardon is if you need to get past someone or you've bumped into someone. But if you want to use the absolutely correct polite formula, I will give it to you now. Everyone can write this down in your notebooks.
All right, everyone ready? Get out your pens and paper.
Okay.
Oh my God, so much in the chat that I'm ignoring. I'm scrolling back.
Should I continue or should I?
Yeah, you give your instructions while I scroll back in the chat.
So you start always by saying bonjour. Until you say bonjour and they say bonjour, your social bubbles are closed and you are not engaged with one another. By saying bonjour and bonjour, you have opened up a gap that means that you can now communicate. And you just always do that. Even when, as an American, you think this is bizarre, I just want to ask them if they know like which way to the whatever, but that's what you start with. And then if you want to be super polite, then the excusez-moi does come in. You say, bonjour, excusez-moi de vous déranger, which means excuse me for bothering you. And then you follow that with your question, which I would say, if you do not want to try to speak French, after excusez-moi de vous déranger, you say, parlez-vous anglais? Do you speak English? They probably do. If they don't, the person next to them probably does. Somebody will help you, but that's just, there's a very, and actually for a shy person like me, it's nice. Now, you're not like walking down the street in Paris and like saying bonjour to everyone because it's a big city. It's only when you need to interact, but it is really funny that it is very different. It's like you go into a small shop and like in the US, you go into a small shop. If you're just looking, you don't want to bother the shopkeeper.
Right.
Okay. Here, you bother them if you don't acknowledge that they are there, because this goes back to the revolution. They are equal to you. You are equal to them. We are both equal. Therefore, you greet me and I greet you. And you're not asking, you don't need to buy anything. You are not committing yourself to anything. You are being a basic, you are exhibiting basic politeness, basic good manners. So I think a lot of times Americans get into pickles over here where they offend inadvertently just by doing what's culturally natural to us.
Right.
Because we associate that with, if I'm going to bug you, that means I want to buy something. And it's not like that at all here. Right. It's very different. So anyway, it's my little.
Well, okay. So I'm going to give you, so here for everyone in TV land. And then, Chris says, hi, Franklin.
Hello.
What I always have to explain to people about New Yorkers, what is a normal greeting for a tourist. Here's what normally unsolicited would be the first thing a New Yorker would say, unsolicited, to a tourist who they see doing this. Where are you trying to go?
Yes.
So where you're trying to go is not, we're not being confrontational. This is the way a normal person would say, oh, excuse me, do you need help with directions? Can I offer you some assistance? Where are you trying to go? And then if they are standing on the wrong platform, no, you got to do this. So we seem terribly annoyed, but the secret is we're terribly annoyed at our own signage, which is not good. Our signage is not good. So like a sign hanging over a subway platform, for a normal person, you'd think, oh, it says B, I stand under it, I'm on the B platform. No, if you look at the fine print, B with an arrow, so we're annoyed with how terrible our signage is.
Right.
And it comes out as being annoyed with you. We're not.
Yeah. Oh, it's that and I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but it was one of the most beautifully pithy and like perfect ways of explaining New York to a non-New Yorker. And you said it to my little sister when that time
When
that
we
we
all,
were all in New York. She came to stay
yeah.
with me. We hung out with
Yeah, we went
you.
out to dinner,
We
we
took
saw a
us to a
show.
Broadway show, exactly, which she still treasures to this day, as do I.
It was a good show.
But you said you said to her that New Yorkers, when they're helping you and being nice, are going to sound like they're mad at you,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Yeah.
And and it's really funny because that's also, I mean, that's kind of Parisians. Like, it's just they're formal. They're just really formal, and it pervades like all aspects of life here, this sort of basic format. And it's crazy because so much of it goes back to that first revolution. And so I call people monsieur and madame all the time, where if in a similar situation in America, I called someone sir or ma'am, even in the South. Okay, because people say, well, but in the South, and like, yeah, I know the South. I have family in the South.
Right.
Even more formal than the parts of the South that still think of themselves as formal. Like, you refer to anyone that you are dealing with that you don't know as monsieur. When I go to the vegetable and fruit shop, I refer to the lady there, who's always the same lady. It's family owned thing. And I always say, bonsoir, madame. And she says, bonsoir, monsieur. And we exchange pleasantries, but we remain monsieur and madame. And honestly, for a shy person like me, it's really nice because you have this framework.
Yeah.
And like all of your little insecurities and all, it doesn't matter. You know what you're supposed to say. You know what you're supposed to do. It's mapped out for you. You don't have to be sincere. You just got to do it. And, so I like it. Now, there are other aspects of Paris that drive me nuts. Like, you have never seen a major crowded city like this, a major international capital. People don't know how to use a sidewalk.
But wait, the tourists or people that live there?
People who live here. If it were tourists, that's a whole different thing. You know that, I know that. You just said.
So so what do you mean?
This is what kills me, is I have had people that I've met, French people, when I was in Lyon, the one time so far that I've really been out in the country for any amount of time. And Paris, it is a fine city, but I could not live there. It is rush all the time. It is rush, which leads me to imagine the entire rest of France as being literally just people moving in the street, like in super slow motion, because Parisians saunter compared to the pace that I was accustomed to, even in Chicago. Forget about New York. Even in Chicago, like,
I thought you were going to say they're like New York walkers.
They just kind of walk, and they don't. And that lovely thing that New Yorkers know to do, which is very sensible, which is, I need to check my phone or do whatever, and you exit, right?
Pull over.
You pull into the lee of a convenient parking meter,
and you don't walk. If you're walking with two friends, you don't walk three wide, covering the whole sidewalk, and then not give way when someone's coming towards you. That's insane to me.
The sidewalks in some of the streets in my neighborhood are like 2.5 people wide in total before you hit the street. And they're strolling. And they see something, they just stop dead. Without I have almost had like rear end collisions with so many Parisians, because there's no warning, there's no nothing. It's just suddenly the phone comes up. Oh, salut, Marie Edwige. Oh, well, and like, and this whole, and it causes this pile up behind them.
But I bet they don't have the Gulf umbrellas when it rains, those giant umbrellas. And granted, those might be tourists, but oh my God, with those giant umbrellas.
The big umbrella. That's hard here because you just don't
It's like a house on a stick.
Yeah. No, you do need to have a sturdy umbrella here though, because when it rains sideways. Like it just downpours here. So
New Yorkers, a good New Yorker knows how to do the umbrella dance.
So you can pass, right? Yeah.
So that, mine goes like that, and yours goes like this.
Goes like that. Yeah. New Yorkers are very sensible people who understand there are people around you. And Parisians are all crowded together like chickens in a coop that's too small, and they just don't care. And so I've had to get used to things like I have literally learned to slow down my pace of walking and just
rough for
go,
me.
I know it's, oh, let me tell you.
Yeah, Zanti's here. Zanti, does that kill you? Now I've never heard Zanti say she has to slow walk. I think that would kill
I'm
her.
curious. Maybe her experience is different than mine.
I don't know. I think that would kill her. Oh, and by the way, Chris wanted to know, are you in Paris permanently? Yeah, he moved. Oh, how long now?
September of last year. So it's been, yeah, time is
so
flying.
when the book comes out, is your 1 year anniversary?
I guess so.
The book comes out in September.
Oh, that's delightful.
How jolly. Troy says it was twisted for sure. Oh yeah, that's what I thought, the Portland store. See, I got so behind. I scrolled back. Wait, I just saw something about hi Pat. Hi Patty and Franklin. Tell us again how to pre-order and how to get the extras. Oh, you just go to my website. So go to my website, pattylyons.com/book.
Look at these chirons.
And you can get all that stuff. Oh, Zanti says, Franklin, the illustrations are super fun. Of course, Zanti.
Oh, thank you, Zanti.
She has seen them
all.
Merci,
Zanti.
And when Anna's here, oh my God, Anna Harakovich is here. Everyone showed up for you today. All my peeps that don't usually show up.
I'm pretty sure they're not just here.
Zanti said, this is also my approach to France, plying on the gratefulness. Oh, really? But okay, Zanti, tell us about the slow walking, because that must drive you insane. I can't fathom her slow walking. New Yorkers are kind, but not always nice. Oh, that is a brilliant expression.
That's a really nice way of putting it. Yeah.
That's really true. Because I do think, so like here, you know what? Here's the perfect example of kind and not nice, or someone from the outside thinking someone was rude. In my life, I have never seen a parent at the base of the stairs or at the top of the stairs with a stroller without some generally kid, like teenager, that from the outside, from other parts of the country, someone might say looked thuggish, shall we say. I've never seen a teenager not stop and without a word, usually not even looking at the person, with their like baggy pants and crazy hat, just grab the stroller and help and then just go. They'll like barely talk to the person or acknowledge the person. Same thing with if there's a pregnant person or an older person, it's usually the Wall Street suits that would not think of getting up. And the kid that someone from Iowa would think looks thuggish always just gets up. And then, if the person tries to thank them, they're like,
it's very much the same here.
Getting off at the next stop.
Physically, it would be hard to think of two cities more disparate than Paris and New York because physically they're very different. But a lot of the the attitudes play out because it's like that here as well. They're both cities where you're going to be the one behind the 8 ball at some point. So if you see somebody else that's behind the 8 ball right now, if you possibly can, you're going to do that little thing that's going to help them.
Exactly it.
Make it through. And here, a lot of times it has to do with accessibility because this is a city that's like
hard to get around.
Old, right. And that's difficult for anybody. Somebody said to me, well, what do people in wheelchairs do? And I said, they have a hard time.
Yeah, same in New York. We're finally trying to address the just embarrassing lack of accessibility on our public transit, little by little. But that is exactly right, that it's hard to live in the city. And, like I've never seen anybody drop a cell phone, drop something out of their pocket, like on the subway, getting off the subway, where someone doesn't grab it and run for that person. Absolutely. Because, and then my other favorite thing is, when you're getting off the subway
Mhm.
And you can hear the person running down the stairs. Everybody knows what it feels like to make a good subway connection.
Mhm.
Everybody knows what it feels like to have just missed the train.
Mhm.
So I love when I see the people getting off the subway, like immediately split and try to get out of the way
So
as
that's
quickly as possible,
Mhm.
because that person's running for it.
Yeah,
You know,
they're very similar that way, the two cities. It's like, they're tough to be in. If you're living there day to day, they're tough to be in. So you
Right.
help out other people because at some point you are going to be the person that needs the thing.
Right.
Could be a big thing, could be a small thing, but yeah, so I'm super happy. I will say that, I will say I do miss New York. People have asked me like, what do you miss about the US? And the list is kind of short, but New York is on the list. But
Might you, not to put you on the spot, but might you be coming in February for vacation? Would you consider? That would be fun.
In February?
Yeah. I mean, they haven't even started planning it yet, but
I would really like to actually.
Well, you should drop Gabby an email and be like, FYI, when it's time for
I'm
February.
finally back to the point where I can do that again. I have two trips coming up to the United States in September and November.
What's November? September is Vegas, right?
September is Las Vegas with Melissa Liebman.
I loved when
November
someone said
is
like, oh,
November is like the do-over. I was supposed to be at Stitches West. It was supposed to be one of my first trips back. And I was supposed to be at Stitches West in, which month was it? In February.
Was that February?
In February.
Oh, right.
But it was the time that we would have had to plan everything. You know how this goes. It's not like you can wait until the last minute and then make your plane reservation. It was was right when we were in like Omicron free fall and nobody knew like what was going to happen. France was talking about closing the borders again.
Remember,
and I was in a situation where I had to go to everybody and say, what do we do if they close the borders to me?
Right.
And I can't get home. Okay. Because like I live in France now. There's no, I mean, that's home.
Right.
But I'm in a weird position where there were people with my visa, the visa I had at the time. There were people who the first time that the borders closed got stuck in the US. Like they flew home to see family or they went for a business meeting and then could not get back into France. And so, they let me off the hook. But so I'll be in Pasadena for SoCal for that. But yeah, I mean, New York, I would love to come back, do some New York teaching. I'm not teaching as much as I used to. Most of my work now is going towards my Patreon group. And we have a good time there, but that's what's allowing me to live here. So that's what I'm focusing on right now. But
yeah, and I'll put the link for for some reason I always look over here like I'm talking. I always look to the chat because my chat's over there. For some reason, whenever I say folks say anything to the folks, I'm like, oh, and I'll put as if they can see me. Anyway, I'll put the link. Yeah, I always put all your links in the show notes, like underneath. So is the best link is like your website, your home base, and they can get to everything from there, or is it better to put Instagram?
If they're interested in where my website right now is a whole different source subject. It's being rebuilt.
Oh,
again.
Okay.
But if they just go to patreon.com/Franklin Habit.
Okay.
That's the best place to see where I'm at,
Oh, Anna says, thank you for the Paris etiquette tips. I'll use them someday.
But it is my pleasure. It is.
This is so valuable for both Paris and New York City. Nuances not so apparent. Very helpful. Very true. Very true. Oh, wait. Michelle, oh my God, I remember when we moved from New York to Portland, Oregon, I thought I was going to be run over when I came on the subways in New York City. And the Pacific Northwest is so weird because I back in my old days, twice I worked in Seattle. And everyone in Seattle's super polite, except for one thing seems to really bother them, which is standing in the street. Now, a New Yorker, where we wait to cross the street is in the gutter where we belong.
Right.
We stand in the gutter. That is where we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. That is where we stand in the gutter where we belong. And people in Seattle would drive past and be like, "Get out of the street!"
Right. Which to me, it's like, but you're not. you're not in the street. What, like, don't drive in
No.
the gutter. How about that? You know?
I'm like behind a parked car. I'm as safe as can be, but I am comfortable in the gutter. Oh, Zanti says, no, I walk just as fast around the Parisian. I wasn't getting a strong sense that Zanti was going to bend or change to suit those around her.
She and I have shared some
I know.
Really cool stories about just grappling with the French language. However, she has lifted my spirits on many an occasion by reminding me that I am not alone and going, what is up with this language?
She's had some really funny ones. There have been some extremely funny misunderstandings over language. Like two words that sound really similar.
Can we, like, the fact that over and under here are like practically the same word, and the only difference is a U sound that we don't even differentiate in English.
Well,
so
that's silly.
Yeah, sous is over and sous is under. What could possibly go wrong? You know, yeah.
Same again.
Yeah. So
same back to back.
Sous is over, sous is under.
So think about how often we would use under and over in teaching knitting, right? So if I ever had to teach, I would, that hand motion that you made, I would just always accompany with the hand motion.
Absolutely. It's taken me, knitting language in French has been very interesting in large part because just by sheer chance, a lot of the words associated with knitting that we use all the time, like the words for needle and the word for stitch. So the word for needle is aiguille, and the word for stitch is maille. And aiguille and maille, they sound so short. They're both these really long words, and they end with an ILLE, which the sound is like E, but when you're first learning, you're like, but when do I stop? Like, how long do I go on with it? And they're like, it's not difficult. You just stop, and you're like, no, but you're like, why can't you just use the word needle, which is what it is? It's a needle, easy to needle. No, it's aiguille. And
so it's like a teenager from Highland Park, suburb of Chicago, not knowing when to stop saying the word the expression "you guys," very short.
Oh yeah.
But where I grew up is "you guys," and it ended with an A for some reason. You guys.
Yeah,
no idea why.
But don't pretend to me that English isn't a very sensible language. That just
English is impossible.
That's the only thing I can say, is at least I'm not learning English as an additional language, because the more that I learn French, the more I wonder, how does anyone ever learn English if they?
I say that all the time. I say that all the time to David, who it's his day from working from home, so I've kicked him out of this is my office, but then it became his office. I used to say that all the time. So we have words that are spelled the same but pronounced differently. We have words that are spelled differently, but are pronounced the same. We don't have any rules because our language is like German and Dutch and
so it all together, blends up. And the biggest difference, the biggest difficulty that I have, particularly with Parisians, is that they speak a mile a minute, like as slow as they walk, that's how fast they speak. And they just don't pronounce anything. Like they just exhale, and every so often there will be like a consonant will like sneak in. But after 8 months, I was delighted to realize that I can begin to tell literally where the words are. Like it's not, and I think Zanti maybe would back me up with this, but it's like, it's not, oh, I don't know that word. It's like, I don't know where your words are in these sounds that you are making. I don't know what's going on. Because it's very much like
we do that too, which I never thought about. Right. I never thought about, but David's students would point that out all the time. You know, like, so he would teach Shrigo, he would teach Shrigo.
Oh, Shrigo, yeah.
Like he would teach, you know, Jeet. Should we go to lunch, Jeet? Like, I'm sorry, what? Should we go to lunch, Jeet? Should we go to lunch? Period. Did you eat? Should we go to lunch, Jeet? So he would teach stuff like that. Everyone mumbles. That's not the.
Yeah, we start to get that now at the level of French that I'm taking in my class. We're conversational, so there's no textbook, and it's all just very much like you talk, they talk, you watch things, you listen to things, and you're supposed to be using and using and using. And so we are just past the magical point that you reach where you feel like you've been making progress, and then you find out that even for native French people, there are much more so than in English. You have written French and you have spoken French, and they are not the same thing.
Yeah.
There are words, like very basic ones, like you're taught in school, you learn, okay, I am going to speak French now. So I know is je sais, but I don't know is je ne sais pas. You put a ne and a pas on opposite sides of your verb. And then you find out that you always do that when you write, and you never do that when you speak in modern French. Like you almost never do that.
What do you mean modern French?
So modern French on the street as it's spoken today, rather than saying je ne sais pas, unless you are being, for some reason, very formal. They talk a lot about registers here, and the most formal register, yes, you might still say je ne sais pas, but you notice even there, it's not je ne sais pas, je ne sais pas. But usually, just me talking to you, we would say je sais pas. You leave the ne, the first part is kept out. But then when you really, it's like you're, je, suis, it comes out now as just je sais pas. Je sais pas. Do you know? No, je sais pas. And it's like, okay, I've spent now at this point, like a year and a half of my life, you're at this, you're like, I've been studying French for a year and a half, and now I'm learning that, oh, no. When you speak with actual people, they don't sound like that. They don't say that. They don't use those words anymore. I'm still using Duolingo because for all that I make fun of it on social media, it's at this stage still proving to be like a nice companion to what I'm doing. And
I don't actually know exactly what it is.
Duolingo is, it's an app that allows you to learn languages, and the format was kind of revolutionary, especially when it started, in that the format makes it seem very much like a game.
Okay.
And honestly, for all that I joke about it, it takes the, to me, seemingly impossible task of teaching someone to speak a language and making the teacher a computer. I think it does about as well as you can possibly do with that, right? And it really has helped me. So I'm still doing my Duolingo lessons, but I truly was, not a week ago, was doing a unit, and I'm kind of high up in the Duolingo, like French, thank goodness by now, and I'm going through, and it was this particular construction, and I was with friends, and they started like, qu'est-ce que c'est? What do you, and they wanted to know, they're like, what are they teaching you? And I was telling, what's the construction for when you need to like line up all of these pronouns in a row, and like, we say, oh, you're going to the grocery store, please take us there with you. And French has a particular way of, and they no way, this is useless. No one would say this. And I'm like, well, what would you say instead? And they're like, we just don't, that construction is like 18th century. Like no one, are you reading Racine? Are you, it's just, it's like Shakespearean constructions, Elizabethan speech.
I do think that's why a person teaching is helpful. Because David, he wanted to make sure that his students knew, knew like construction, like proper English, but also he really, really wanted them to understand that, that no one
Well,
would say it that way, that no one, that is going to make you sound like, in a way, speaking properly
mhm.
is going to make you stick out.
And it gets even more complicated than that, because I thought, well, ho ho ho, I am so with it, and I'm not your typical, like, just book learner out there. So I started hunting down all of these online teachers who their specialty is like street French. In fact, there's a duo here who their channel on YouTube is called Street French. And I was like, this is great. And I'm reaching that point of advancing age where it's still easy to forget how advanced in age I am, because in my head, I'm still 22. And so I was paying a lot of attention to them. And their whole thing is like casual French and slang, and French has tons of slang in it. And these little things, right? And so I was following them, and I was saying things, and I was getting the opposite reaction from my friends, which is like, oh, no, 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 like, don't say like that. And it was, some of it was, I'm trying to remember, I can't remember
Was
what
it
the
like
exact.
you're trying to sound young, or you're trying to sound hip, or like
That's
what was
it. I
that?
sounded like
Oh,
somebody's great granduncle.
so like an
Like,
old person being like, you have mad skills,
yeah,
and a 20 or
exactly.
20 something being like, don't say,
Yeah,
don't
no, when you
stop.
say it, it's not good when you say that. And
Right,
so then I realized, it's like, okay, so what I need to know about that is like that it exists. I might hear it. I need to know like how to,
right.
but I need to also know, like, no, that train has passed you by. You are in Paris, but you will never be young and in Paris, which is too bad, but at least I got here eventually. But
Azanti
it
said,
is,
I
yeah.
can't pronounce this, so you need to read this. That we just had house guests this past week from Paris, and I had a very confusing exchange in which I thought he said the French word for building,
Oh, bâtiment.
and he said furniture, and it was a whole thing.
Oh, that's right. Yes, because there's immeuble, which is a building, or like buildings generally, and then there's meuble, which is your furniture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what she
because it's
said.
movable versus immovables.
I wish I could
You-
remember the one that was with her husband. That was she repeated something like 3 times. I can't remember what that was.
I think I remember that story, and it's like, oh, I thought you were asking me the time, and it was something
Yeah, it was really
like,
funny. It
and
was
I would
like,
I would just laughed with painful recognition of
now
exactly that.
Chris asked if you, and I think the answer to this is no.
Mm.
As Chris said, did you move to Paris not knowing how to speak French? But that, no, you had already started. Yeah, that's
When I realized that when I started coming to Paris regularly to visit, um, it reignited my love of the language. I had taken French in a sort of half-assed fashion in high school and then in college. But when I came to Paris for the first time, I realized how much I loved it here and was going to have the opportunity to start coming back regularly. Then I really started cramming. So when I moved here, I had gotten to a point where I had reached a pretty respectable level of fluency. But I'm in a frustrating place right now with the language, which is the plateau that I was happy to read is pretty common, where I now really know how much I don't know. And it's a level that it takes, like, according to all of my friends who have become truly fluent in a new language, it takes, they've said, like a year and a half from now, you will find yourself like lifting out of that. It's just a very gentle slope that you're on. You are going up, but you're going
right.
up really slowly. You're building vocabulary, you're building familiarity. And I really am trying hard. Like, I listen to so much French radio right now. And I will say that world news is much easier to deal with when you only understand like half of it.
I was going to say, is radio easier? I would think television would be easier because you're seeing people's faces and there's maybe more helpful context, or
It's
but then maybe radio is
it's
just just the voices. So I don't know.
well, it's more about like what this is, well, yeah, I mean, you know, this
But
is
what
the
about
fun.
podcasts?
Well, that's the thing. This is the fun thing. And you know this because we have kind of the same job. Can you watch television while you are doing a lot of hand things that you have to look at?
Right. I mean, it
No.
depends on the TV if it's not
Yeah.
nothing that I care about, but I do love my podcasts.
Oh,
I,
I'm a podcast like nerd to high heaven, but left to my own devices, I listen to a lot of, you know, I would listen to English all day because I'm usually, if I can't, it's something I can't take to a
yeah.
cafe, then I have to do it at home in the workroom.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of American expats here who really don't learn anything beyond rudimentary tourist French because it's
Right.
possible, especially in Paris these days. I've had a lot of people who've been astonished to find out how much Paris has changed, like in the past 20 years. And a lot of it has to do with the internet and with the EU and international mobility.
So
And
what would
like
be the
people,
biggest
the biggest thing
changes?
would be people who were here like in the 90s. And in the 90s, it was very unusual to see English in signage anywhere. And now it's
Ah,
extremely common. Like it's
ah.
even in places where I have to tell you, it drives me nuts
I was
because
going
I'm
to say
like,
that's
it's like you
probably
have a word for that. Like near me, there's a place called Soucoupe, which means saucer, but it is Soucoupe Coffee Shop. Like
so.
you have a word for
That's what I was
coffee.
going to ask. Is it that it's, and I think you just answered, a translation or simply a mix of where just like a random English word would be
It's
in
it's
a sign?
it's become really fashionable to use English. And you
That's
yeah, you see it all.
that.
And also Paris has become, with the EU and the increase in mobility, you have more people living here who are not French than you ever had before. And if you're a
Oh,
business and you need to appeal to as many people as possible, what's the language most of your customers are going to have in common? It's going to be English.
right.
If you have a
That was
student
the weird,
in, you know, like 3 different countries coming together, the language they're
right.
most likely to have in common will be English.
The thing that I found the most confusing about signage in Japan when I went to Japan
Hmm.
was I would ask, because there would just be random English. And I asked the woman that was a translator that was working with my friend, is that the translation of? And she'd say no, and she said what you said. She said English on signs is terribly fashionable. So it was just a random mix where it
It,
wasn't that the name of the store is blah blah blah, and then underneath it it's that in English. It was just like some random English words.
yeah, it's the strangest thing. And you have a lot of American influence. And sometimes I'm definitely one of the Americans that kind of shakes my head and goes like, all the stuff we do and like that's what you're into. Like right now, burgers are a
It's
huge thing in Paris.
really
And I'm like, why? Why? And in some cases, like other American foods that we actively avoid, you know, that are like that Americans themselves go like, and they'll be like, but it is new and it is exotic and is different. However, when they do eat burgers, they always eat them with a knife and fork, which, you know, different strokes for different folks, that's fine, except that here, that is absolutely the norm, to the point that I did not realize that. And the first time that I went to a place and I was like, screw it, I'll have a burger,
is
you all
this
have a
considered
burger.
rude?
And I went
Like,
like this, and they were, no, it wasn't rude, but it was more like the knowing looks across the table, like, oh, look at the American. He's going to eat his burger with his in his hands. He's look how he's doing it. It's oh my goodness. I'm looking at them going, what are you doing?
dude, it's my food. It's our food.
I have I have
I'll
used
eat
that
it the way I
line.
want. It's my
I
food.
will tell you on several occasions. Or like when so behind me in this cabinet is my sewing machine, which is a treadle, because you know that's like how I am. Um and it's a Singer, except then oh no, no, this is Singer. It is a Singer. Like, no, excuse me, it's a Singer. No,
It's a
Singer. I'm
singer.
like, it's an American name.
Right.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure I win this one. You can call it whatever you want to, but that's not it. The guy's name was Singer. That's how you pronounce it. It's Sanger. Because here you order is she's Bulgare, which is weird because then I keep mispronouncing that because it's happened the other day. I finally reached a point where I was able to order a burger at a restaurant and not give a damn that the waiter was probably thinking, oh, again, of course, he's going to have
I saw you post that. You were very proud of
Oh,
that.
yeah, I was so like,
Zanti posted the story. It was the exchange that she thinks I was thinking of. And this is it. This when I was telling H about yarn shop sweaters. And he thought I was talking about chickens. So word for sweaters is
poule.
Word for chicken is
poule.
That was the exchange.
Yes, poule.
So way more bizarre than under over is talking about a sweater and someone thinking you're talking about a chicken.
That's
really, a little different.
Yeah, and they do stuff like the word for egg is œuf, which is spelled O-E-U-F.
So you're saying a word is basically a New Yorker sounding exasperated.
I have said that's not a word, but wait, it gets better. So that's one egg is un œuf. Okay, un œuf, and you have like a whisper of the F at the end. Un œuf. If you add an S to the end, so it's O-E-U-F-S, that is plural. That is eggs, more than one egg. Okay, two or more eggs, but that is les œufs. So if it becomes plural, you stop pronouncing the F and you don't pronounce the S that you've added onto it. So then it is literally just
I wouldn't last a minute.
Un œuf, des œufs. Oh, I've had days, sister, when you would, I have almost flown into rages. I'm sorry, your language makes no sense. I'm not having any of this. It was this way when I pronounced that word, and now you're telling me it's this way. And then, but the English is just, and we're not talking about English right now. We're going to talk about your language, and like,
no whataboutism.
It's exactly.
Yeah. So now that you live there, if I was going on vacation somewhere in the country, somewhere, but we landed in Paris, I would be willing to. I would spend a couple days there because I wouldn't be so
I hope you would not just whiz through without seeing.
I wouldn't because I was only in Paris once, and it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was not a good experience. Mm-hmm. Our plane from I think we're flying from Venice or Rome, but an Air France plane, it got canceled because Air Chance, hi, and so we ended up spending the night in Paris, and I had it was not I did not feel an overwhelming warmth for the American Jew, shall we say.
It's well, anti-Semitism in France as a whole.
I felt a wee bit uncomfortable.
It's if I had to pick one thing about France that makes me particularly wildly uncomfortable, it would be the bizarre level of casual anti-Semitism in France.
And when you walk around with a face that looks like the map of Palestine, you definitely feel it.
Do you think they draw fine distinctions for me?
No. Do you know the actor Tony Shalhoub?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Tony Shalhoub,
David, Lebanese like me.
Yes, correct. And David worked with him many, many years ago, before he was famous. And Tony Shalhoub used to say that whatever casting call he was sent out, if the description of the character said, and I'm not making this up, vaguely ethnic, he said that was him. So he was all he was a professional other. Mm-hmm. So you are an Arab, you are a Jew, you are a Lebanese, you are other, you are not. So he said, I'm professionally vaguely ethnic. They don't know what you are.
It's that
but
weird.
They know you're not them.
The most hilarious thing is how often the thing I have been asked if I am that when I've been speaking French is Italian.
Oh,
Vous êtes Italien? And
Does anyone ever ask you if you're Greek? I get that sometimes.
No, but I
get
did
asked.
have, and there was one moment that it really just came home to me, and I was at a brocante, a pop-up antique market, and I was getting ready to do Thanksgiving. I did Thanksgiving this one time for like 12 Parisian friends.
I know. I couldn't believe you had just
And
gotten there.
it
Like you
was,
hosted a
I
giant
know, like
party.
I was still
That was
bleeding. I was so
impressive.
newly arrived, but I didn't
Santi
have
said
any.
the egg thing is my pet peeve, and she wrote it all in caps.
Oh,
Sorry.
yes. And then, no, no, no. And I wanted candles on the table. I didn't have any candlesticks. And I was at this brocante, and there was a silver dealer who had really good, totally simple, like pair of candlesticks. And I was like, oh, I'd like to see those, please. And he pulls them over, and this random woman next to me, like, draws herself up and says, Est-ce que monsieur est juif? Just, are you Jewish, sir? And I was just sort of like, I really do not care for your tone of voice. Like, I mean,
Not like, oh, are you Jewish?
no, it was not
It
like
wasn't a
that.
gleef-
It was
it
not
wasn't
like,
a gleeful
hey, how about
excitement.
that? It was like, have I just been standing next to one of the, and so it really is kind of stunning. It's
Yeah.
one of the parts of France that well, America has its own issues, and it's one of those
I
things
know.
that the more uh the better sort of French person has the same issues with it as like the sort of, I won't hesitate to say, the better sort of American has with
Sure.
American racism and things like that. But it's there.
Of course.
It's
I'm
very
in
definitely
a
there.
million years for anyone out there in TV land. I am not assuming that French equals anti-Semitic or all Parisians are anti-Semitic. I'm just saying you know it when you feel it. And so you're not the odds of spending an entire day with a face like mine in Paris and not because you can there's like a look that you can feel in your gut. You can feel it without even turning your head. You have to, this.
Well, and frankly, and this was a big surprise to me, is that in terms of the general attitudes towards gay people, France generally, including Paris, is kind of like where America was, like I would gauge it as like around like 2000. Surprised the hell out of me.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Very true. To the point that I was advised by some very well-meaning friends that they said, well, two things that will potentially make it difficult for you to get an apartment, unless you can find one through a personal connection, are that you are American, number one. They do not want to rent to Americans.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of reasons behind that have less to do with anything about Americans as opposed to just, anyway. And the other one is that there are a lot of landlords that won't rent to a gay man.
Wow, that I didn't know.
Just, excuse me. And it's very, and where you can feel it here is that you have neighborhoods like the Marais, which, interestingly enough, one of the two very traditionally Jewish neighborhoods in Paris, the other one, by the way, being mine, although most of the Jewish population in this neighborhood moved to the Marais a while ago.
Garment district. Where there are sewing machines, there are my people.
Well, I mean, Marcel Proust's grandparents on his mother's side, which was his Jewish side, literally were like 2 blocks from me, which I like freaked out because I'm a huge Proust fan. And I was like, I live right near where they, So the Marais now is where the gay bars are. And the gay bars here, this is what made me sort of realize this and start to feel this on my very first visit to Paris, is they still have that very guarded, insular feel that I remember from American gay bars in the 90s and the early 2000s, when it was still very definitely like, this is a gay space and you have to be kind of careful, and we don't have a lot of windows, and you maybe don't want people to be able to see inside. And it's still at a certain kind of bourgeois Parisian who's like very class conscious and very conscious of respectability will think it's kind of daring of them to invite, especially if it's a couple, like they're having a gay couple to dinner. And so it's very much for me, and I do not mean this as a
Wow.
compliment. It's very much like sort of like a Will and Grace world of
Right.
like, oh, he's so gay and he's very gay, but he can't have a boyfriend and he can't kiss anybody. And it's kind of like that's where France is right now. It's really,
So
really, really not what
like
I.
when 30 something, that was the night.
Oh, I
30
remember
something.
that. Right. Yes.
Yeah. So
Showed,
that was so scandalous because it was the first, not a kiss, not a
Mhm.
kiss,
Oh, they didn't even touch each
fully
other.
closed.
Yeah.
It was two men sitting up in
Mhm.
bed in the morning,
Mhm.
t-shirts, just sitting up in bed, having conversation first thing in the
Yeah.
morning.
Mhm. Oh, I remember
The
that. And it was,
world went on
oh,
fire.
yes. How could you do that? Oh my, yeah. And it's
Because
not
Disney
like,
owned NBC. It was the end of
yeah.
like that was the first time that Disney was sort of like outed as
Mhm.
being friendly to those people. Oh, the world went insane.
One of the first really internationally popular series here is, and it's on Netflix. It's on American Netflix. And in English, it's called Call My Agent, and
Oh
in
yeah,
French,
it's
it's
on
called
TV.
10%. It highly recommended.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
really, really good show. But especially in the first season, there's one gay character. It's set at a high level
Yeah,
talent
can't it with
agency.
subtitles.
And oh yeah, and like watch, it's really, really, really good. But
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
the
She
one
has
gay
been.
character is an assistant. His name is Hervé, and Hervé is swishy, girly. And what really shocked me was at first he was a really one-dimensional character, and I was prepared to really dislike this show. And the only thing that it's like it's a two steps forward, one step back thing, because eventually in later seasons when the show really takes off, like Hervé is actually allowed to begin to start having depth and storylines and motivations and things like that, instead of just being like the gay best friend,
What was the
getting
show?
like the Sex and the City treatment. And then
Oh,
another major character, it turns out, as a lesbian. But then, like, for me anyway, the step back is they get into the thing where she like accidentally sleeps with a man and gets pregnant, and now she has a baby, kind of deal. And I was like
accident.
I'm so tired
Did
of
she
like the gay
trip
person
and fall on
suddenly
it?
winds up what it's a
How
whole
did she accident? Okay.
thing. They actually, it turns out to she's a character who's like, she's an agent whose like whole life is like conquering the competition. And there's the guy that she hates so much, and he hates her so much, and they actually wind up having like what amounts to like fighting hate sex.
Ah,
But then she gets pregnant.
gotcha.
And they're doing the best job they can possibly do with it. It was just like I kind of got tired of the trope of like gay person accidentally has straight sex, accidentally winds up as parent storyline, like back when Ang Lee did The Wedding Banquet.
Right.
I was like, just knock it off. Like, I mean, sure it happens. I'm sure I'm just, it's like, but it's just, this is one of those things. It was like the next stage of evolution from all the gay people die at the end. The next thing was like, we make the gay person okay at the end because they have a kid.
Right.
It's okay that they have a kid because they had a kid with a straight person.
They're just like us.
And
You
but it is a
remind,
great
did you
show.
ever
Don't get
see
me wrong.
that you reminded me of the like when you said about a character being very stereotypical, but then did you ever see the TV show Ugly Betty?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I remember Ugly Betty.
Because there's a character on Ugly Betty that is like that, where at first you think one-dimensional writing,
Mhm.
totally stereotypical, fabulous friend,
Yeah.
who then it's it, I thought the brilliance of the writing
Mhm.
is you begin to understand the surface stereotypical writing
Mhm.
is not surface stereotypical writing. It's
Mhm.
the face he chooses to put on. It's the
Ah,
it's how he's presenting only one dimension of himself because he believes that's what the world of fashion wants and expects from
yeah.
him.
Yep. Yep.
So then you realize he's like a much more, he's a deeper, more interesting.
Mhm.
I just thought that show was fabulous. I
That
loved
was,
the
well,
writing.
I have to say, for you, so all the, aside, I fell in love with the show, and 10% has been a big part for me of getting a grip on my spoken French because I'm so interested in it. And they also pull sleight of hand stuff. Like there is one actress of a certain age who at one point they whip out this little factlet that like, oh, you know, she was Chet Baker's girlfriend. And I was like, oh, that's whatever. Well, then later I thought I recognized the actress in something else that I was watching. So I'm like, oh, let's see, is it the same person? Am I getting to that point now where I can say like, oh, I remember you from such and such. So I like type, I look up, it's like, no, this actress actually was for real Chet Baker's girlfriend in New York, like in the 40s. It's like, well, go you. I mean, you must have a million and one stories to do, but they wrote it in as part of her character storyline. And if you want to say, oh, because that's something else that comes up all the time is I had people say, so, and have you watched Emily in Paris? It's like, okay. Everybody here has watched.
Zanti's got the feels about Emily in Paris, FYI.
Well, I'm curious about what her feels are.
I don't think they're good. I don't think they're good.
Emily in Paris. Okay. Emily in Paris here is what Smash was for people in New York who worked in theater. You remember Smash?
You remember. I decided.
Oh, how could I forget? Because we talked about that show. Where I was like, okay, now wait a minute. And you were like, oh, no.
So David couldn't, but I decided that it was too delightful. So I hate watched it. And then like my friend Jessica, who's a wardrobe supervisor, and my friend Francesca, who was still working on Broadway at the time, we would post stuff. Like I loved the load in when first of all, I loved when one of them just ran out of backstage wearing her costume and like had a fight on the stage, because like that would definitely happen.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, Zanti says I just refused to watch it, but Emily in Paris. But oh yeah, I totally hate watch that.
I mean, someone asked me about, someone called me Emily in Paris, and I was like, oh God, please no, because she, number one, Emily is the kind of American that I try to avoid here. I live in a part of the city where there are not a lot of Americans living, and that's largely deliberate because a lot of Americans who have chosen to move to Paris are pains in the butt. And I just, you know, but we also the show like is
go just, to a place to blend in and learn their ways.
We
can often go to a place to make it try to be where we left.
I'm not gonna blend here ever, but I want to live here. And the funny thing about that show is it truly is just the parade of stereotypes. And when you actually can compare them to like real everyday Paris, they're hilarious. Like honestly, this is why people here will watch it every so often. Because it's just, I mean, things that don't happen. Like I remember in the first episode, her new boss like literally lights up a cigarette in the office and blows smoke in her face. And you can't do that here. You are not allowed to smoke in places of business here.
And you haven't in modern day?
Yeah, it's you can't do that.
Okay.
I mean, and people do smoke a lot here. That is absolutely true, but not in the office. It is not, and it's not like it's new. It didn't happen last week. It's been a long time and it's not done. And it's sort of like stereotypes of Paris remembered like by people that were last here in like 1975.
Right.
And also just stuff that she does and she wears where like, she's always running around Paris in like very skinny high heels. And
is it an American show?
No one does that. Yeah, Emily in Paris is an American show.
See, that's so funny because my image of a Parisian woman would come from like would come from my image of Audrey Hepburn, which is always wearing adorable little ballet flats.
Well, and the thing, and the thing, like those ballet flats, you'll still see those here, but you see a lot of sneakers. Sneakers are very fashionable now. But the streets here, you break an ankle in like 12 minutes. The only time you see anyone in heels
like
is
Soho
like, it's like party season and you're going someplace and you want the heels and you are going to tread carefully and you're probably taking a taxi and you just try not to break your neck. But like as everyday footwear, especially on your way to the office, like maybe you change your shoes when you get there, but probably not, because it also nowadays, the way that a real Parisian dresses, I just got to spend some time in Rome again, which I loved. And
I know.
I finally figured out so this is the way that I figured out is like Roman women are very chic. and Parisian women are very chic, but a Roman woman's idea of chic is, I put it the other way. A Parisian's woman's idea of chic is, I look like this and I put absolutely no effort into this look. I did nothing to look like this. And a Roman woman's idea of chic, which is equally chic, is I did everything to look like this. There are no accidents here. No part of this was unplanned. This is a work of art. And they're both beautiful, but they're really, really different. And like one of the things that women friends of mine here have confirmed with me, because I've commented on things like Parisian makeup styles and stuff like that. And if you put on like what I've seen in Chicago or New York or even Seattle, like you put on your face for the day, you show up in a Parisian office looking like that, and people will say like, oh, you're really making an effort today, aren't you? Which is not a compliment. It's like, if you can tell you have makeup on, it's like, oh,
so I'm fitting right into Paris, you're saying? Because this is my makeup routine.
Seriously? Okay. Okay. No joking, and very seriously, absolutely yes. And part is just because like you have your look and you own your look and you wear your look. And you're looking like
doing nothing.
You'd fit right in. It's really kind of amazing. It's because the only women that you see here who are like really done are usually sex workers or tourists from Russia with lots of money.
Oh my God, I loves me. I went in New York,
and my neighborhood is actually famous for sex workers. And in fact, when I go to the supermarket, that's like where they tend to work. And they are gorgeously dressed. I mean, really, really, really elegant looks put together. But
Friday night on Brighton Beach, man,
together.
When you see all the young 20-somethings dressed up to go out to the Russian nightclubs, I've never seen anything like it. It's spectacular.
The funniest place to go looking for outfits like that is like, I did a bit of video the other day in the original part of the Galerie Lafayette, which has the big Art Nouveau dome and stained glass. And it truly is one of the most spectacular things in Paris. But of course, to go there, you are then surrounded by people who are shopping at the Galerie Lafayette. And it's a scene. It's a scene. It made me want to go put on like the rattiest clothes that I own and just let my hair grow forever and maybe never bathe again. Because it was just like, I have never seen so much, like, I don't know how to describe it. See, it's getting, I have to let you go soon and go have my dinner because
I know, you know what? I was going to tell you, Tony just said, I have to run. So the fact that Tony has to go, I can't believe we talked about it. But I have to ask you one more question before and then seriously, I can't believe we've talked for almost 2 hours. Because you reminded me when you said, like, I just want to put on something ratty. And then I thought, you know, if you put on, do they still have an obsession about Brooklyn in Paris? Because there was a huge thing. It was before I would say maybe 5 years ago or so. I remember I was doing Pilates. Maybe it was a little longer ago. It was probably a little longer ago. And there was a woman who has an apartment in Paris, and she has an apartment in New York, and she was back, and it was her New York Times she was doing. And she said she has to go to Brooklyn and because that's where Nicole's other studio was. And Nicole was like, oh, you could have worked out in Brooklyn. Oh, I didn't know you had a studio there. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, what are you doing in Brooklyn? She's like, oh, I got to buy a ton of stuff to bring back to Paris. And she's like, oh, what stuff? She's like, I got to bring Brooklyn chocolate, Brooklyn bitters, Brooklyn beer, Brooklyn t-shirts. But it's currency. Like anything that says, but they're like, oh, Brooklyn. They're like insane for Brooklyn. Is that a thing?
Well, remember that this is like fashion capital. So it's like stuff, hot fashion, it like changes like every 20 minutes. So that's not still ongoing, but what you can take pride in as
we're out.
Like is, no, you're not out, but it's just that what's happened is that they've just taken a lot of the Brooklyn specialties and trademarks and they've brought them in-house. So now if you go to the next arrondissement over from mine, it is hipster central because that is the word, is hipster, but with the French touch. So it is hipster. And it is where you will find the microbrewery and the flying yoga pilates silk pole dancing workshop and the atelier avec, the shop that sells like only things that look like they came out of the inside of a rusty clock, and that kind of thing. Like they just started.
Any word that starts with artisan, fill in the blank, artisan coffee.
Do you want to know? Okay, the whole artisan is the most over it just here like everywhere else. The only difference being that here, I will honestly say that you generally have a pretty good chance of it actually being artisanal.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, as much as I make fun of Brooklyn, and I love it here, and I love, our artisanal this and I will give it to Brooklyn that we are making things with our hands. Like that is a thing that is actually happening, where furniture is being made, things are being made, things are being grown, bitters are like it is for real.
And I like that too. I make fun of it just like you. I make fun of it, but I mean, look, I just bought a concertina the other day.
I know, okay. I saw that.
I'm going to learn to play the freaking concertina. So I have no room to like make fun of anybody for their like 19th century hobby.
Here was my response that I almost typed, but then sometimes your fans scare me because I once I said something to Zandy in a private message, and I'm not going to say what it is because it like it's to someone else it would seem rude, but I said to Zandy, like, did it ever occur to you blah blah blah, and Zandy typed back, see, from you I think that's funny, but like I would never say that thing out loud because
people would
be like, oh, that's so rude.
Clara Parks and I have sent a few messages like that back and forth.
My first response was, you're telling me you don't currently play that? Like, I just thought, I saw that.
You just assumed I already had one, which would be a fair assumption because you know me. You've known me for a long time.
I would have assumed that, yes, you play that. I'm sure probably somewhere in a closet is, perhaps like a dulcimer alongside your
hurdy-gurdy or whatever. Don't think I didn't look at the guy's hurdy-gurdy at the shop that had his.
That sounds dirty when you
but Brooklyn and parts of Paris share a lot of the same kind of ethic and aesthetic as well, and that locally and the handmade and all that it can be taken to. It's like anything else. You can make it twee, you can make it precious. Or it can be like a really cool, interesting, like net good thing.
Because I just thought, well, if I wear a sweatshirt that says like Brooklyn Jew, then would they be nice to me? But no, I'm just kidding. There was a really interesting, it was an interesting interview with this woman that an American who's lived in Paris for many, many years now. So her French is perfect and her accent is perfect, right? And she's Black, and a friend of hers came to visit, and she went to the shop, and all of a sudden she's speaking French in an American accent, and her friend's like, and she said, because the Parisians don't really like Black people, but they love Black Americans. And her friend's like, well, how do you feel about that? And she's like, they love me. But she makes sure to speak French with an American accent when she goes to shop.
They just installed Josephine Baker in the Pantheon, but But the people that live in my neighborhood who have more right to be here than I do, who are from French West Africa,
correct,
are often not treated as well in shops as I am, and I got here a few months ago.
Yeah, it's very odd, their obsession over American Black culture.
That's different.
So I thought that was wild that she purposefully
makes a point of it.
She speaks French with an American accent, and then
not the first time I've heard a story like that where that's concerned. And the expat group that I belong to online, there's a lot of people that will back that right up. Yeah.
I was going to ask you if there was like groups like that. Because years ago when I went to Italy,
yeah.
a woman said that and she had lived there for 20 years, but she said, and this was so many years ago, this was before like social media, but there were, do you remember like AOL rooms, like discussion rooms?
Yeah, except these are just it's on Facebook now.
Right.
And I originally joined 4 of them. I still belong to 1, which tells you what most of them are like.
I would wonder if that would be helpful. I would think there might be some.
The one group is extremely helpful. The rest of it is usually like even hate watching. After a while got to be too much. Like it's sort of people self-select into their groups. And there was one where everyone's complaints were things like, I just can't find a cleaning lady that I can trust with my jewelry. Sorts of complaints. Okay. Not real, cool. As the kids say, not relatable content.
Cool.
For me, okay. The woman who, I mean, sometimes it was funny, like the woman who was saying that, well, we live in the 16th, but my 2 children and her kids were like 16 and 17. So she lived in the ultra rich, ultra fancy part of town. And that when driving her children to their private school, she could not find a route that would not make her drive through L'Etoile, which is where the Arc de Triomphe is, and which is like famously, like I know native born Parisians who do drive in the city who will not drive through Étoile because it is terrifying. And she's saying, and I just don't know what to do. And the response was from people like variations of, well, why don't you just let your precious, practically adult children take the freaking metro to school? Why are you driving them in the first place? Or, but you live in the 16th and they go to such and such private school and you can't afford someone to drive them. Why don't you just, buy a chauffeur or blah, blah, blah. So it was like the person, she did not get a lot of sympathy. Because also flashing money in France, it's one of the reasons you can tell like the really fancy people are usually like, right now they're the inconvenienced wives of Russian oligarchs, are not French, because in France to do anything that shows that you have a lot of money is very, very, very looked down upon. Like the French famously do not consume luxury cars. Like they might have millions and millions. They will still drive kind of like, it'll be a decent car, but it'll be like a Mercedes, which over here is like not quite the status symbol that it is in the United States. But even then that's like probably they'll just have a nice Renault or something because like you don't want to show off.
There was that weird in-between era of movie stars. So not like the Cary Grant era or the modern, but there was like the Dustin Hoffman era of movie stars where like, they would just wear gross jeans and sweatshirts and drive a Volvo.
Exactly. Like they're not being dressed exclusively by Prada type.
It was a very like that was the not hip thing to do, but I don't know. It is dark out. And it is 4 o'clock.
Well, that's okay. I should let you go, but I've really enjoyed myself. I apologize to your community that we didn't talk very much about knitting, but order her book. It's really good. I'm really proud of my little contribution to it.
I know. So. I love I really particularly love the book ending of it, the beginning and the end, because
those were fun to draw.
Yeah, like the when you emailed me your idea for the end, and I emailed you I said the one word. If I was to sum up the one, like if someone said, okay, what do you want people to feel after you read the book? And I said empowered. So empowerment would be like my one.
And there we go. And that gave me the perfect springboard to do something that, well, I'm really glad that you're pleased. So I can't wait to see the physical book. I'm really excited to see the physical book.
Everyone say, okay. Everyone say goodbye. Thank you so much. I don't know why I always look here to say, everyone thank Franklin, like they're going to say, thank you, Franklin. It's so dark out there. All right. I hope you come in February, because the one thing that is the nice thing about coming to certain cities where 1 million people is God forbid your flight get canceled or like something happens. It's not like, you don't have 8 million.
Chill out. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity.
So lovely talking to you. And thank you so much for saying yes to the book. I couldn't believe you said yes. I really couldn't. I felt like I got there was like a opening, there was a window that opened where you had just moved and life hadn't gotten super busy. And I'm like, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to go ahead and ask.
It's a well-paid gig too. So thank you for that part too.
Oh, that's good. I thought, the worst you can say is no effing way, but you said yes.
I said yes effing way. So, okay.
And now I'm going to have to bug you to get a quote for the book landing page.
No problem. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. Bonne soirée, ma chère amie.
Darling.
Bye, honey.
Have a lovely dinner. It's like 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night or some.
But it's okay.
Oh my God, it's 10 o'clock.
We eat late here. It's okay.